Good afternoon, everyone. Hi there. Welcome. What a beautiful day in Temecula. My name is Aaron Adams, and I'm the city manager for the city of Temecula. And I'd just like to welcome all of you to our Special Needs and Inclusive Playground groundbreaking ceremony. Yay. Before we get started in the program, there are a few dignitaries that I want to recognize. And from the 3rd District Supervisor, we have Supervisor Jeff Stone. We have Mayor Marianne Edwards. We have Mayor Pro Tem Jeff Comachero. And we have Council Member Chuck Washington. It's also always good to see commissioners come out for these events, and I'd like to recognize Commissioner John Talicio, Commissioner J.R. Richardson, Commissioner Zach Schwenk. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. And I'd also like to recognize our Chief of Police, Jeff Kubel, in the back. Our Assistant City Manager, Greg Butler. All of the Human Services and Community Services staff that helped make this possible today, let's recognize them. And could you just raise your hand if you're a member of the Regional Autism Task Force? We'd like to recognize you today as well. And we have Councilmember Milnen from the City of Hemet. So thank you. A couple of our development partners are here, and they're going to be very busy over the next 3 to 4 to 6 months. And I'd like to recognize from Pacific Place Systems, Ali Bamanian. Thank you. And from Perpetual Parks and Playground, we have Robert McDonald. Robert, thank you. And at this time, could I ask everyone to stand? And I'm going to invite Vanessa Munoz up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Vanessa, would you come up, please?
Thank you. If you could please stand and put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. Vanessa is actually one of our invaluable interns that we have at City Hall, so appreciate your help today.
Thank you.
Today marks a first for the city of Temecula, a city with 39 parks and hundreds of offerings of community services programs. We are a city that has taken great pride in what has become a hallmark of our community. That signature is our park and recreation system. Yet today we will break ground on the first inclusive special needs playground for the city of Temecula. Since 1989, we have been fortunate to provide services for our seniors, active adults, youth, and special needs population with the early creation of our High Hopes program. And since then, we have partnered with many amazing nonprofits. Many of you are here today to heighten the awareness in so many areas. And I'd also like to recognize one other individual, Mr. Mark Onsamo from our Nicholas Foundation. Let's hear it for Mark. Mark played a significant role working with the city staff and the city council subcommittee on the design. This playground property will soon become an amazing and joyous opportunity for young and old. It will also provide a respite for parents of special needs children and young adults, and those with physical disabilities as well. I'd like to share a quote that reminded me of the motive and purpose behind today's event, and it comes from George Washington Carver, and it states, "How far you go in life depends on your being tender with the young, compassionate with the aged, sympathetic with the striving, and tolerant of the weak and strong, because someday in your life you will have been all of these." Ladies and gentlemen, we have a dedicated city council subcommittee that worked very hard to put this project together So it is my pleasure to introduce Subcommittee Member and Vice Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Jeff Comachero.
Thank you, Aaron, and welcome everybody. You know, when we started doing this project, and I have to tell you, the impetus for this project came from Mike right here, and you'll hear from him a little while later, and he just kind of dragged me along with him, and I was happy to do that. But, you know, you go back in our history, we're 25 years old now. December 1st will be our 25th anniversary, so come back for the party. And we started off with nothing, as most cities do. I know Supervisor Stone, you came on just 2 or 3 years after that, and you remember. And you worry about, how are you going to survive as a city? How are you going to build and maintain roads? How are you going to keep your citizens safe? It's not till after you've accomplished those things, or at least are well on the way to accomplishing those things, that you start to think about recreational opportunities and cultural opportunities. So we built 39 parks, and we built a community theater, and we built 2 museums, and everything kind of had its place in the pecking order. Not many cities get to the point that we are, where we've taken care of all those things, and you look up and you say, what haven't we taken care of? Well, this is what we haven't taken care of yet, at least not in the way we'd like to. And so today is the beginning of that effort. And I think that's very significant, because there are many cities that get to this point. Some never do, but those that do, and they don't take that leap. Why don't they? Well, I'm proud that we're a city that does. You know, I read something the other day. It said, the difficult we can do right away. The impossible may take a couple of days. So it's a couple of days later, Mike. But this is a very exciting opportunity. This park is an ideal location. It's centrally located. The space is here. We've got some other plans to expand some things here. The YMCA, or the old YMCA building behind us, is being converted into a recreation center that will handle other opportunities too, for seniors and for other segments of the population. I don't know, Aaron, are you going to kill me? But we're having some conversations right now that haven't really been too public yet, where we may be partnering with a private firm to put an ice rink here in this park. So can't say for sure that's going to happen yet, but we're having those kinds of discussions. So we're constantly moving forward, and this is just a great day, another great day in the history of this city, as we take up another mantle and we make sure that all segments of our population are appropriately handled and have the same opportunities. So thanks again for being here. Come back when we cut the ribbon. You're going to enjoy it.
Well said, Jeff. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite up 3rd District Supervisor Jeff Stone for some comments. Let's hear it for Jeff.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here for this very special park, and I would like to share with you some defining moments in my life that have a relationship to what's going on here today. I don't know how many of you actually remember the first emotion of compassion you ever had in your life, but I remember mine. I was 5 years old, and my grandfather was a shoe store owner in Santa Monica, and we used to go spend the weekend in Los Angeles to be with my grandparents. We lived in Anaheim at that time. And my grandfather would take me on occasion to his shoe store, and it was always very exciting when Grandpa Eddie would take me out to lunch and introduce me as his grandson. And I remember as we were walking down what is now the Santa Monica Mall, I remember a child that was in a wheelchair that was approximately my age. And I remember saying to my grandfather, "What's wrong with that little boy? Why can't he walk?" And my grandfather said, "It's because he has polio, and he probably will never be able to walk in his lifetime." I said, "Well, Grandpa, why aren't we doing something about that?" He says, "That's why, Jeff, it's very important that you get an education. And maybe you'll go into medicine and become a doctor. And maybe you'll try to help heal future children so that they can walk." And I have to tell you, that left an indelible mark in my brain, as I knew early on that I wanted to go into some form of medicine to help these children that, by no fault of their own, become victims of certain disease states. I'm very proud that I went into pharmacy, went into compounding, and I'm very proud that a lot of products that we make are to help treat Asperger's disease and help those cope with the many medical issues that they have. Another defining moment happened when I was on the city council here. My grandfather never talked to me about politics. That was probably a good thing. But I was elected on the second city council, and our goal was to have parks from one side of the city to the other. And as Jeff Comanchero said, we started with nothing. And we conditioned developers, and we found money, and we were building parks from one side of the city to the other. And for those of you that don't know, when we incorporated with 3 questions that we asked the voters. We said to the voters, do you want to incorporate? What would be the name of the city if you choose to incorporate? And you must support a special tax to maintain the future parks that we'll have in the city. So we passed, we became the city of Temecula, and we had a fee that we charged every parcel in the city so that we could forever maintain the parks and recreation services and maintain our beautiful parks. Well, lo and behold, the state legislature, not often our friend, passed a proposition called Prop 218, and they said any special tax that your citizens have approved by a 50% plus 1 vote must be revalidated. You must go back to the citizens and you must get a 2/3 majority vote. Now here we'd already had $15–20 million in parks. They were being beautifully maintained, and there was a possibility now of going back to the citizens that probably didn't know the origin of how we maintained and built such beautiful parks, asking them to revalidate a tax. Not to ask them to pay a new tax, but just revalidate a tax that allowed us to become a city. I remember that well because Jeff Comanchero and I were the co-chairman of the Yes on Measure C committee. We wanted to make sure that people understood that parks and recreation amenities really bring quality of life and specialness to cities. And with the hard work of Jeff, myself, and that's where I met Daryl Connerton, who's in my office today, happens to work for me in my supervisor's office. Daryl was instrumental in helping us because we were novices in politics. We didn't know how to run campaigns, and we had to go out and get 2/3 majority vote.
I was there.
And Marianne was there. And Mike was there. Where were you? On the planning commission or something. Anyway, we went out and we worked our tails off. And guess what? What was the percentage, Jeff?
78.
78%. 12 points higher than we actually needed. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why you see that we have a beautiful community theater. We have a beautiful community recreation center. We have parks from one side of the city to the other. We have doggy parks. We have every type of recreational amenity that you can think of. Now, another defining moment in this city was what's on the corner of Winchester and Yanez.
The mall.
It was going to be a Walmart, but through a long story, it became the mall, which gave us now the financial wherewithal to get out and buy land. And I was on the council when we bought this 20-acre parcel, and it's just interesting how we go first full circle today. And here we are, going to be doing a groundbreaking on a very special park. And so you'll know, we've been going down parallel paths. Mike and I have been talking about special needs populations and special needs parks for a while now. And Mike shared with me his vision for what he wanted to do in the city, and actually it paralleled my vision for what I want to do in the county. I work with County Supervisor Marion Ashley. Supervisor Ashley has 3 grandchildren from 3 different children that have Asperger's disease. So Marion Ashley has been firmly with me in developing a special needs park. And I'm very proud to tell you that we have a 10-acre parcel in French Valley, and I'm very proud to tell you we've already gotten $500,000 in contributions from developers and want to see a special needs park, not only for the youngsters that we want to provide recreational amenities for, but we have a lot of veterans that are coming home from Afghanistan and Iraq, dismembered with a post-traumatic stress injury. We're going to have an aquatics facility for these kids. We're going to have recreational jungle gyms, swing sets. We're going to make it so that all people that have special needs are going to be able to come to Temecula, French Valley, and be able to take their families and enjoy these very unique parks that we're trying to create. So I'm delighted you're all here, and I want to applaud Mary Ann and Jeff and Mike Nagar and my good friend Chuck Washington and Ron Roberts, who's not here today, for supporting Parks and Recreation Services and showing compassion for those that didn't get everything that they should have gotten when they were born. And we're going to do the best that we can to make them fit in and to give them the quality of life that they richly deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. The other half of the Inclusive Play Park subcommittee is somebody you all know who has a passion for advancing special needs awareness and education. Please welcome Council Member Mike Nagar.
Good afternoon, everybody. I kind of want to freewheel a little bit here because there's a lot I have to say, but then there's a few other people I want to recognize. I saw Mark Woodsmall here. Mark, where are you? There he is sitting down. Mark Woodsmall, Spiro Vineyards, partnering with the city in a viticulture program for special needs, giving them skills and an education that's going to lead to employment. Mark came all the way down from Pasadena just for this groundbreaking. Thanks for being here, Mark. Of course, if you're involved in special needs, you're familiar with Inland Regional Center. How many of people here are familiar with Inland Regional Center? And I'm so proud to have the chairperson of the Inland Regional Center Board, Maybeth Field. Maybeth, where are you? There she is. Stand up real quick. Thanks for being here. She came all the way from San Bernardino to be with us today. Now, there are some things I want to say, but I want to introduce somebody first because it'll tell you a little bit about the genesis of where we're at here today. Right now, where I'm standing in the middle of a splash pad, or a future splash pad. To my left will be a playground, and to my right will be a playground. But I remember after we had collaborated on quite a number of projects and quite a number of different programs that we wanted to do, Mark Anselmo comes to me and says, you know what, we need a place where families can go and just have a birthday party or a little respite where their special needs kids can play, and in a fenced-in area that has equipment that can accommodate their special needs, and also a place where they can't run off, so parents could just sort of let their hair down for a minute. As Mark's probably going to tell you here in a little while, and I can testify, when I take my son Liam out somewhere, I have to be very vigilant. In fact, it's not really a respite for me. It's work, but it's a work of joy. If I take him to the beach, he never stops. And by the end of the day, I'm exhausted because he's down the beach this way and down the beach that way and in the water and out of the water. And it's a good thing, but it's hardly a respite. Here, I think I'll be able to pull up a chair and say, son, go play. Okay, and he'll be able to do that. And that to a special needs parent is huge, as Mayor Edwards is saying. I just want to recognize and call up to say a few words, Mark Anselmo. Mark, come on up.
I just slapped the city manager in the face. Sorry about that. You know, basically 2 words just kept coming to my mind as I'm sitting in the audience there today. Is just simply thank you. There's so many people to thank with this day finally coming to fruition, and it's just a beautiful day to sit back there and think, you know, you talk about a lot of things, you dream about a lot of things, and many times, you know, the day will come, and it just never does. And today the day has come. And it's a beautiful thing to see the partnership once again between the private and the public sectors. I mean, it's easy to talk about this. I've repeated myself multiple times about the city of Temecula, You know, the community services department is bar none the best crew that we've ever seen. We deal with a lot of different agencies and different counties and cities, and we have parents who talk to us across the country continually, and all pale in comparison to this crew. And you know, a lot of these folks, day one, 9 years ago when we started our Nicholas Foundation, you know, we didn't know what to do, where to go, you know, didn't have a clue, and had a conversation with Chuck Washington. You know, we talked to Marianne Edwards. I knew her from way back when, you know, and Jeff Comachero and Supervisor Stone. And, you know, along the way, just the support that they gave us, which allowed us to get our feet. And then along came Mr. Mike Nagar, and, you know, the worlds collide over coffee, just trying to figure out what's the next step in our world of autism. And, you know, what he just described as the experience of a day in the life of a special needs parent is dead on correct. We never went to public parks. You know, we'd be invited to go with our friends who had typical children, and we had to make up excuses because, you know, we didn't want to try to explain why is our child, you know, rushing up and down the slide, or why is our child running, or, you know, and working up a sweat, and it just wasn't worth it, honestly, to the unfortunate dismay of the child. And so this is going to give that opportunity. I mean, you can see by the picture and the drawings, this is going to be a beautiful place to relax and actually sit with other parents and talk and enjoy your children more than you could ever, you know, dream of. So I'm going to keep it fairly short, but this has just been such an amazing experience to be called into these developmental meetings. Kathy got brought in to help choose colors, and you know, they mentioned Mark. It is the Mark and Kathy, so I do want to recognize Kathy Anselmo, and I want to recognize Nicholas's brother, Anthony Anselmo, for our path along this journey has been amazing. So without Big Nick, I wouldn't be who I am, and you know, he's a blessing to us. So, and I'm not going to cry in a public sector because that's not acceptable, is it? Yeah. All right. So that being said, you know, I am so excited for the future to come. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity for this city to hear about French Valley. That's amazing. First I've heard of that. It's just so wonderful. And I think this is like every other thing with the regional task force and everything else. You're going to see this duplicated in other cities and across the country. And what was it called? Temecula? Yep. There it is. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Mark mentioned the regional task force. Supervisor Stone, myself, Supervisor Marion Ashley, and council members from the 8 regional cities here sit on the Autism Task Force. Behind me is Council Member Shelley Milne from Hemet, who has taken the ball and running with it and now creating special needs programs in the city of Hemet. And so this is catching fire because of what we've done here. And I would be remiss if I didn't truly thank from the bottom of my heart my council colleagues who are just the most wonderful council to work with. We have our differences, but we don't let them show. And I'll tell you, we know how to work with each other and get where we need to go. And that's just a really neat thing. And I just want to thank you all, Chuck, Marianne, Jeff, and Ron. Now, let me kind of conclude with just a few thoughts of my own. Maybe share my heart a little bit. Maybe share a little bit of my foolishness, because I have to tell you, I think in the beginning of all this, I was a bit of a fool, but hopefully a loving fool, as you'll soon see. I remember I had just won re-election in 2008, and during that period of time, it was a very, very trying time. It was a tough election. There's a lot of things going on. Just a lot of bad politics, a lot of family problems, a lot of things of that nature. And I knew something was unusual with my son. Couldn't quite put my finger on it. We just figured, well, that's just Liam. He doesn't talk too much. He doesn't really look at me. You know what? He sits off in the corner by himself, but that's just Liam. We didn't really pay it any mind. But it got to the point where you know what, you can't pretend not to notice anymore, and you can't really be in denial. And so I went to one of my good friends at first. Remember coming to Supervisor Stone, I sat in his living room and I said, Jeff, I think something's wrong with my son. And Jeff sort of talked me down and went out, and I got some diagnosis for my son, and turns out my son was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. That was about April of 2009, maybe February, March, April 2009, and needless to say, in my foolishness, and I say foolishness, you'll see why in a minute, my family was devastated. What do we do? Where do we go? How do you handle this? There's so much to know. What does this mean? What the heck is autism? Is he ever gonna talk to me? Is he ever gonna eat an ice cream cone? Will he get married? Will I have to take care of him for the rest of his life? Where will we live? I can keep going on and on, okay, what that means. And I know every person here with a special child thinks about that. I still think about that. And in all of that, we were alone. Where do you go? But some people came out of the woodwork and told me, Mike, you're not alone, and sat me down and talked us down off the cliff. I remember calling Mark Anselmo of this obscure organization called Our Nicholas, some organization that dealt with autism. I don't even know what autism was, but they were out there. Mark, can I talk to you? My son's just been diagnosed with autism, and I sat down with Mark and I got to know him. He's a good brother in the Lord, and I told him, I think I'm going to have to resign from the city council. I don't think I could handle this. And he says, brother, just wait a minute, okay? Just don't act too rash. Let's go over this. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to start calling. You're not alone. Well, back to my friend Supervisor Stone, who starts feeding me resources. Many people who started feeding me resources. And you know what? I realized that I wasn't alone. In fact, as I look back now, why do I call myself a fool? Is that what I thought was going to be so tragic has turned out to be the greatest blessing in my life. I can't even begin to describe to you how much our son means to us and how much him, who he is, means to us. That Mark and I say all the time that if somehow you could wave a magic wand and change everything, I don't know that I would. I think it would almost be sort of an insult to him or God to even think about doing such a thing. And so when I look at what I thought was a tragedy and see how it got turned into good, and then I see how I was encouraged as a public official, asking myself, and if you let me indulge, I kind of feel I sometimes like to consider myself a godly man, or at least wanting to be. Lord, why am I in this position? And why did this happen to my son? There must be a reason for it. And so I decided to make my story public. But my story is everybody's story. This isn't about me, and it isn't about my family. It's about all of you and every single one of the shadow population out there who felt they weren't part of society, no matter what ailment you have, whether it be cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, autism, Asperger, you name it. I can go on and on. In the city of Temecula, you're not alone. Soon in the city of Hemet, you're not going to be alone. And soon in Southwest Riverside County, you're not going to be alone. There'll be jobs for you and housing for you and education for you and play for you. And I want to say one last thing. The children, the typical children, particularly the high school children and the young elementary school children in this community, are nothing short of fantastic as how they embrace the special needs community in the school district. This community is blessed because of the people who live in this community and continue to bless others. And it just keeps going and going and going. So you know what? We're going to break ground here on something fantastic, on a funded park and a splash pad. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. And we're going to keep thinking up new ideas and new needs and meeting all kinds of needs for everybody on all kinds of spectrums. So forgive me for, I guess, being a fool, but I'm a happy fool, okay? And I want you to know that I'm a blessed fool as well. So thank you very much.
Well said, council member. Well, I think we're ready to break ground, so if I could have the Temecula City Council and Supervisor Stone join us over here at the tractors. I think we got some equipment for you. You gotta have your hard hat and your golden shovel.
We get to drive?
Yeah.
Wind blowing.
Why? really toss. I mean, like
Okay.
6 inches. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Very good. I mean, I got dirt in the face. I got dirt in my hair. Good job.